Super pumped to be back for another year. I mean, it was tough, you know. I could have gone either ways. You know, I've wanted to play in the NFL since I can remember, and that opportunity was there. And when it came down to it, I mean, I just looked at my goals, and I still have so many goals that I have here for myself and for this team. And, you know, when it came down to it, it was tough, but I'm happy where I decided to come back.
That was Michigan guard Zak Zinter. Thanks to mgoblue.com for the audio. Zinter says he's super pumped to come back. And you know, I'm going to speak for all Michigan fans. They are super pumped to have him back, along with his other interior offensive lineman on the other side at the other guard spot, Trevor Keegan, pairing up. I don't know if there's two better guards returning, or there are two better interior offensive linemen in all of college football than Keegan and Zinter. And that was huge to be able to get both of those guys coming back for the Michigan football team next year. Welcome in. Hope everybody's having a great Tuesday right now, February the 7th. We're ready to kick this one off. We're live weekdays talking about the latest in Michigan sports. We got a good one for you today. We've got some football and basketball here on the Maize and Blue Review. And with that, we'll tell you exactly what we're going to be talking about. Well, we will look back to last year's Michigan football season, the non-conference portion of the schedule. We'll look back to last year, and then we'll look ahead to this year. So a look back and a look ahead. I have the question for anybody out there that's on the feedback watching this live that wants to contribute. Just when you think about last year's non-conference slate for Michigan, you know, you had Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. I ask you, what were your biggest takeaways from last year's Michigan football non-conference schedule? And we'll put those comments up on the board and we'll respond to them, and, you know, we'll talk a little Michigan football. We like doing that. Michigan basketball-wise, I've cooked up some percentages on the Wolverines' chances of making the tournament, also a couple select players, and the percentage that they will be coming back to Michigan. One for his senior year, the other for a potential sophomore campaign. We will get to that straight ahead. But we are going to start with the 12 days of Michigan football. And you may have heard of the 12 days of Christmas. You know, the 12 days of Christmas, the partridge and a pear tree and all that. This is the 12 days of Michigan football. So let's send you through this one with a little singing along the way. Let's get this one going. On one of the first days of February, Michigan football gave to me the return of Chris Partridge and some new route trees. On the second day of February, Michigan football gave to me two gigantic NIL collectives and the return of Chris Partridge and some new route trees. On the third day of February, Michigan football gave to me three Heisman hopefuls, two gigantic NIL collectives, and the return of Chris Partridge and some new route trees. On the fourth day of February, Michigan football gave to me four complete quarters, three Heisman hopefuls, two gigantic NIL collectives, and the return of Chris Partridge and some new route trees. On the fifth day of February, Michigan football gave to me a 5-star QB, four complete quarters, three Heisman hopefuls, two gigantic NIL collectives, and the return of Chris Partridge and some new route trees. On the sixth day of February, Michigan football gave to me 6 TDs a game, a 5-star QB, four complete quarters, three Heisman hopefuls, two gigantic NIL collectives, and the return of Chris Partridge and some new route trees. On the seventh day of February, That's today. Michigan football gave to me 7 players from the transfer portal, 6 TDs a game, a 5-star QB, 4 complete quarters, 3 Heisman hopefuls, 2 gigantic NIL collectives, and the return of Chris Partridge and some new route trees. On the 8th day of February, Michigan football gave to me 8 Sparty misdemeanors, 7 players from the transfer portal, 6 TDs a game, a 5-star QB, 4 complete quarters, 3 Heisman hopefuls, 2 gigantic NIL collectives, and the return of Chris Partridge and some new route trees. I think I skipped 7, but it'll be okay because we're going back and running them back from 9 to 1. On the 9th day of February, Michigan football gave to me 9 OSU decommitments, 8 Sparty misdemeanors, 7 players from the transfer portal, 6 TDs a game, a 5-star QB, 4 complete quarters, 3 Heisman hopefuls, 2 gigantic NIL collectives, and the return of Chris Partridge and some new route trees. Let's get to the 10th day of February. The Michigan football program gave to me 10 yards per play on offense, 9 OSU decommitments, 8 Sparty misdemeanors, 7 players from the transfer portal, 6 TDs a game, a 5-star QB, 4 complete quarters, 3 Heisman hopefuls, 2 gigantic NIL collectives, and the return of Chris Partridge and some new route trees. Just 2 more. On the 11th day of February, the Michigan football program gave to me 11 hats to the ball on defense, 10 yards per play on offense, 9 OSU decommitments, 8 Sparty misdemeanors, 7 players from the transfer portal, 6 TDs a game, a 5-star QB, 4 complete quarters, 3 Heisman hopefuls, 2 gigantic NIL collectives, and the return of Chris Partridge and some new route trees. We know who that new route tree is for. Unfortunately, I don't see him in the chat yet, so that's a little bit disappointing, but we know who that's for. So we get to the 12th day. On the 12th day of February, Michigan football gave to me 12 regular season wins, 11 hats to the ball on defense, 10 yards per play on offense, 9 OSU decommitments, 8 Sparty misdemeanors, 7 players from the transfer portal, 6 TDs a game, a 5-star QB, 4 complete quarters, 3 Heisman hopefuls, 2 gigantic NIL collectives, and the return of Chris Partridge and some new route trees. There it is. The 12 days of Michigan football. That's only the second time that on this particular podcast that I tried singing. The first time is when that Elvis movie came out in the summer and I had the guitar. I got no feedback, no response, and I'm thinking people did not like that. But I came at it again and went at it again. So we'll see how this one is looked at. But it's good to have, regardless of what you thought of the song, it's good to have Chris Partridge back, the ace recruiter for Michigan. I don't know if I said that it was 100% official. Josh Henschke was saying that it was happening, and Trevor McHugh was writing a story about it on the Maize and Blue Review. But I don't know if it was actually, like 100% official or anything. And it is 100% official for Michigan. So, that's the good news as we sit here today. We can tell you that is happening. We don't know exactly what the shakeup is going to be with the staff. There's going to have to be a coach, and I don't know, maybe there's 2 that will be departing. And so, stay tuned, and we'll just see what ends up happening there. Now let's get to some real football talk, and that's looking back to last year. There's a nice thing to do when you're talking about Michigan football, when you're a fan, you're an observer, or anything. when somebody asks you a question about it, instead of going back and actually, looking at the tape or looking at the scores or looking online, it's just what comes to you on the top of the top of your head. And that's the question that I ask you. What were your biggest takeaways from last year's Michigan football non-conference schedule? And we talked about it all year long that it was going to be a some training wheels, a real easy schedule for Michigan to be able to do a lot of things. I say little did we know, but we did not know exactly. We all speculated on, well, Harbaugh, this is how he will play out the quarterback competition. It'll happen in the fall, but then he'll be able to use the first 3 games. Maybe he'll play one of the guys the first quarter, the second quarter. And as we know, he ended up, going out with a battle royale with McNamara versus McCarthy. And that had people, some of the media, like, he obviously doesn't want, whatever. Everybody had their opinion on it. And I thought, wow, this really is, shining the light on these guys. Quite the, the interesting approach, given McNamara the start in the first game, McCarthy the start in the second game, and then we were going to see. That was the thing, that was, the headliner as we went through. We'll see where the people are at and what they were thinking. If Andres talks about the cupcakes and that they were good, big games are a risk not worth taking. Now, since it worked out fabulously, I'm not going to sit here and argue about it too much, Andres. And Michigan's running it back. They're running a super soft, cupcake-filled schedule this year. And I noticed that, Michigan football pundits and fans along the way, because there were a lot of people like, this non-conference schedule sucks. And they're like, Michigan, what the hell are they doing? That kind of stuff. And then as it went along, people were like, well, what do you think about the non-conference schedule now? You clowns, you bozos. And even at the end, it's like, where's everybody talking about the non-conference schedule now? The whole point to it, like, if you just like wins and you're like Andres, which there are a lot of people, and I think increasing, there's even more people that are like, hey, we just want dubs. We don't care where they come from, what they taste like, we just want dubs. We don't care. Bring anybody you want in. Get automatic dubs. And I don't know if that's the prevailing feeling. I know that people that go to the games and say spend their money on season tickets and go down there, they would like a better looking non-conference slate. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. Some people might sell a ticket or two and try to recoup for the season. And, for them, it's like, okay, yeah, you get that. There's other people that just like exciting games. And, I used to always, that's my position. Like, play the biggest games possible. I get that other people are ducking. It's like a heavyweight fighter. You get the tomato cans, and then, along the way, you'll have some big games. Don't worry about that. But I like a Saturday when Michigan's playing an opponent where I think that they could lose. The possibility exists. And the non-conference slate, it was like, sure, you're looking forward to the games, but it might as well have been a maize and blue scrimmage. It was like, what's Michigan going to win by 50? Are they going to win by 60? Let's look at the backups, and that's fun for a game, maybe even 2. But, by 3 games, it's like, come on. But I know that there are a lot of people. And like I said, if I had to guess, I still think because of the amount of people that watch the games, that go to the games, and I think the vast majority of people that spend money on the games, like if somebody said, hey, you want to go to the Michigan football game, you might just say automatically, yeah, let's go. But at some point you're going to say, well, who are they playing? And if you had another Power 5 team, you'd say, oh, or if it was a ranked opponent, you'd say, oh my gosh, this is going to be awesome. Look at it was like 2 years ago when Michigan was playing Washington. Now, Washington lost to like Montana in the first week, and it was like, oh, Washington, this isn't like your typical Washington team. And they weren't. Michigan was able to, bowl them over. They were an easy game. But name-wise and name recognition-wise, a night game, it was like, whoa, this is going to be awesome. Michigan and Washington. So I hear what you're saying, Andres, and I think there's a lot of people that are right there with you. Big games are a risk not worth taking. Andre's, saying that I may have been hitting the dispensary this morning. GFF. He was the top college football recruiter for Michigan multiple times and was the reason we were ascending even when we were losing big games under Harbaugh the first few seasons. That's GFF talking about Chris Partridge. Yeah, his accomplishments on the recruiting trail are well documented. He's an ace. He is awesome. His track record speaks for itself. Things have changed drastically in college football with name, image, and likeness. So we'll see if he still has that magic touch or not. I don't know. Would Rashawn Gary go to Michigan if NIL was in place back in the day? Maybe. Steve, the song is going to be available forever on YouTube and on the podcast. It'll be there and it'll be available for you. Woo! Keep your day job. Yeah. Yeah. I've never thought about, maybe I'll throw my head into the ring as a singer. No, even like Weird Al Yankovic type deal. Let's see. Doug says the light non-conference really gave Jim the chance to try out JJ and save face for Cade, although Cade now doesn't seem to appreciate it. Yeah, well, Doug, you have the non-conference slate. When you say it was easy, it was cupcakes, let's just take the dubs, everything else. But Jim Harbaugh did use last year's non-conference slate, and he took advantage of it. Like if Michigan had UCLA and they had this, let's say the second game instead of playing Hawaii, I guess it was UConn that was whichever one, but let's just say it was the second game. There wouldn't have been this battle royale, and maybe it would have been Cade McNamara who ended up, because it looked like if you listen to Harbaugh, and we'll take him at his word this time on how he was evaluating the quarterbacks, he had it pretty much even Steven, but he did give a slight nod. And whatever the three categories were that he looked at, he gave the slight nod to Cade McNamara. So Cade, if they didn't have the super soft schedule, may have been the starter. And, Cade, I remember him revealing, was it after his first start or was it in the spring? I'm sorry, in the first week leading up, where he said, yeah, Harbaugh's not having the rotation like last year. And I loved hearing that. I was like, oh, yeah, that's a smart move by Jim Harbaugh. It did not. We all know how it worked out, but he used that non-conference slate. I think he also may have, the whole thing, and we still don't know exactly how it worked out with the combination of the coordinators, the co-defensive and co-offensive coordinators, the Jesse Minter and Steve Clinksdale, the Minter-Klink defense, and then when Matt Weiss was still aboard, along with Sharon Moore, it was the Weiss-Moore combination. And maybe, however they were doing this, you think is odd, co-coordinators making the call, collaboration, that they like to call it. Whatever that, however they did that, the operation of it, it was, if you're going in against UCLA, trying some, juggling the play caller, that wouldn't have been advisable. But when you got the three games that they had, me and Andres and Doug could have been calling the plays, dialing them up. I don't know what you would have been dialing up, Doug. I'd have been dialing up a lot of downfield passing. That's what I would have done. Let's take some more the feedback. We'll go through those games. It can maybe release some of your memories on what was happening. Andre says Michigan should plan on big non-conference games in the first round of the playoffs in the Big House. When they go to a 12-teamer, yeah, well, hopefully they get the bye, But then if they don't, having a home playoff game, intersectional game, I hear you. And, the thing is you can still play. You don't have to duck anybody when you have a 12-team playoff. You're allowed to lose a game or two, and you could still be in the top 12. You might not be able to host one of those games if you drop one, but I think that you would be more likely to beef up, at least get an opponent where people are like, oh, okay, that's an interesting opponent. And you don't have 3 walkthroughs when they go to the 12-teamer after next year, right? Because next year they're still doing the 4-team, right? Isn't that right? 23? I think so. I don't think they're going to the 12-teamer next year. Could be wrong. It all kind of gets to, smash together, and then you're like, wait a second, is this on? Are we ready? OT says, for as good as Michigan's season was, the lack of big-time games was disappointing. Well, sure. That would have been the thing. Like, if they would have lost a game along the way, there would have been a lot more of that kind of talk, OT. Like, they played this horse bleep schedule, and then they lost. I mean, what the hell? We weren't even entertained. Meanwhile, because they ran through the thing, almost like a hot knife through butter through everyone, just blowing them out, taking no prisoners, all that kind of stuff. Close shave against Illinois at the end. But really, first halves, they were pretty close. That's for sure. But no, I think that that's a good point, OT. OT, I remember the first time I remember old Traveler coming in. He was like, how come you're not talking about Michigan football? I was actually putting Michigan football players that were on playoff teams. He's like, I don't like this. Talk Michigan football. It's my first memory of OT, but he makes a lot of good points about Michigan. So it was criticism that I understood. The Gladiator says, I like the new hype Penn State's getting. Maybe the game in College Station will mean something this season. Yeah. Well, Penn State seems to be recruiting well. Penn State also, for everything that happened to them last year, they lost to Ohio State, they lost to Michigan, but they were really good in all their other games. They looked really good. And then they had did they touch off the tunnel debate controversy, or was there? No, it was Penn State. Because the Penn State, James Franklin, then afterwards Michigan was like they were throwing peanut butter and jelly, whatever it was. And so that, the tunnel talk, you may be tired of it, and you got tired of it at some point, but tunnel talk will be back when Michigan plays Penn State. That is going to add to that game, the conversation of James Franklin's little crying, whiny head football coach, bitching about the tunnel. Along those lines, that's going to happen. And, do I think James Franklin is going to be asked about, his tunnel response? I would ask him about it. If I had him on a Big Ten teleconference, I'd say, yeah, hey, coach, last year you were pretty adamant about Michigan changing things up at the tunnel. What kind of reception do you think that you will have for Michigan in the way that they'll get to the tunnel? You can say, I might have to think about that. Was my first thought on the question. That would give him a real easy out, because he could just say, well, here in Happy Valley, our opponents are respected, and they have their own direction right to the dressing room. It's very easy. So, so I'd have to think about it. James, will there be any effect? James, did your guys throw things? Were your players throwing things at Michigan in the tunnel last year? No, you don't want a yes or no question. But I think along those lines, let's go to Dennis Fithian for the Maize and Blue Review. You're on with James Franklin. Coach, there were reports that your players were throwing sandwiches at the Michigan players, which kind of lit the matchstick with the whole tunnel controversy. What were your guys throwing at Michigan? There it is, a little open-ended, because you can't just say yes or no. What were you guys throwing at Michigan? Let's go, James. That's my question. I'm ready. Whew. Jim would have given me the reins as the OC. Well, you'd get the last call, but Andres, I'd be like, let's fire it downfield. Doug would be working some play action. He was a play caller. All right, let's get Rob in here. We play at Texas and at Oklahoma in 24-25. We lose those games. People will want the soft non-conference back. LOL. Yeah, those games are still on there. My feeling was that with Texas and Oklahoma going into the SEC and the whole SEC versus the Big Ten, that those games were going to be canceled. But then last year, this was after, and we've known for a while that the Texas and Oklahoma are leaving for the SEC, although they're not going to be able to leave early. Minnesota scheduled, I think it was a home and home with Alabama, which was encouraging that maybe Michigan would keep these games. It's a good point. I hope, and it's not just they play Texas at Oklahoma, and then they're home and homes. That's awesome. That's exciting. Andres is not going to like that. He will not like that week. Why is Michigan playing this game? They could lose it. They could. There's no doubt about that. So that's it. This is a good point as well about the non-conference slate. We are adding USC and UCLA in 24, so we will be like the SEC before you know it. That's right. Maybe they'll play an additional game. And those, there was, I was even going to put it up one of these days where the idea of the protected rivalries and, maybe Michigan wouldn't play Michigan State every year. I was looking into that. I don't know. It was some Twitter stuff, or maybe it was Reddit stuff. And it didn't make 100%. I didn't exactly know who was putting these protected rivalries up there, if it was just somebody's idea, or they made it sound like they had like the scoop on everybody that these were the schools that everybody was picking. But it didn't make sense to me. Like Michigan and Michigan State, I think are going to play every year. The ratings are too good. Like I wouldn't care, and I don't think you would care, but I think TV cares. They would rather see Michigan and Michigan State play every year. So maybe the schools did say, we don't want to play each other every year. I think they're going to. Why would Minnesota do that? Why do teams play tough teams? Because they want to measure themselves against the best. And if they're able to do that, then you can have a real special season. Not everybody looks at it like, and if you're Minnesota, they might not be thinking, oh, man, if we stub our toe, it's over and we're not going to win a national championship. Maybe they're realistic on things. Maybe if you're Minnesota and you're PJ Fleck, you can tell people, like, we're going to measure ourselves against the best. And, that could be like a springboard for the rest of the year. And you can say, hey, if we could beat Alabama, we can beat anybody. And if you lose, how often is Minnesota going to be in a position where they're going to be, sitting out there looking at the college football playoff? If I was a Minnesota fan, I would think that would be awesome, having Alabama come in. I don't know, Andres, we go up to Minneapolis and you're like, hey, let's bring in North Dakota State. That's who we're going to see today. Ooh, we're bringing in the Tide and Nick Saban. Place is going to be going crazy. That's why they do it. I know. There's a lot of people that think like you do. All right, to maybe refresh your memory about last year, these are some of the things that I put up about Colorado State. Michigan won the game easily, 51-7. Michigan had 7 sacks and 11 TFLs. And if you recall that one of the other things one of the other things that we talked about, in addition to the quarterback controversy or the quarterback competition, was that Michigan was, they had lost Aiden Hutchinson. They had lost David Ajabo. Would they be able to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And then they just, came out there and set the tone really for the season with the way that they played. Also, Cade McNamara on his very first series against Colorado State, if you remember, he threw the ball high to Cornelius Johnson, and then he threw the ball low to Cornelius Johnson. And on the first series, I think Cade set the tone. It's like, wow, Cade is off. I'm not saying Cade was rattled. Maybe he was. But it was like, wow, man, you're in a quarterback competition. Put the ball on the receivers. After that, almost every drive after that, Michigan scored a touchdown or certainly a field goal for the rest of the year on their first drive. Well, they had a different quarterback. Cade felt the pressure immediately in that game. That's what I remember about that one. Game 2, that was JJ's first start. That game felt like it was over in the first 5 minutes. It was a late night game at Michigan Stadium. Michigan went right down the field. It's like, wow. Not only do I think that I could have been a play caller, am I going to say that I could have suited up? No, I'm not going to say that. But I think I could have called some play. I think I could have been the head coach for that game with Michigan taking care of Hawaii. And JJ couldn't have looked any better in the first game, and then he couldn't have looked any better in his first start. He was awesome, and he won the job. That's what I remember about it. And then the third game was UConn, and Michigan, took him to the woodshed, smacked him upside the head, 59-0. Blake Corum had 5 TDs in that game. And then Cade got hurt right near the half. He took a big sack, and that was the last that we would see of Cade McNamara on the field for Michigan, and that was the non-conference slate. Those are the things that stood out, the things that were memorable about, for me, a couple one-liners for last year. Now, looking ahead to this year's slate of non-conference games, East Carolina, UNLV, and BG. I did my first. This isn't like some extensive preview on the Pirates. But I was looking at East Carolina football, and I came upon the simulator. And it said it ran 10,000 simulations of Michigan and Carolina for the game on September the 3rd. So I was like, all right. They had Michigan, and it sounded like the score seemed about right, and so did the point spread. Michigan favored by 28. The Wolverines win it 46-18 after 10,000 simulations. Would I take this? Sure, I would take it. I would like to see single digits from the Pirates, and I'd like to see Michigan over 50, but, that's, there's not a lot of complaining to do about Michigan scoring 46 and East Carolina scoring 18. That would be fine. In this simulation, Michigan would not be covering the point spread, would they? Like 28, 38, 40, and pretty close, but no. So right on it there with the Pirates. They also ran a simulation, had one available for Michigan's second game, UNLV. This one a little bit more like it. How about they had Michigan as a 37-point favorite? Wow. Against the Running Rebs. Andres is going to love this game. He can't wait. Oh, let's go, Running Rebels. Michigan, 38-point favorite, 37.5-point favorite. Michigan 50, UNLV 13 is what they have the final there. And the third game of the non-conference slate is on the 16th. They did not have a simulation available for Bowling Green. But if you know anything about the Falcons, you know that when you drive down 75 through Ohio, you drive right through the middle of the campus. You look over to the left, and there it is, Bowling Green. Look over to the right, there's a bridge that goes over, and I don't know. I think you can walk to either, maybe it separates the athletic facilities from, school, or I don't know. But I know that I've driven down 75 a few times. I'm like, oh, there's Bowling Green. And then the Falcons have a real Michigan flavor. Scott Loeffler, who was born in Bradenton, Ohio. Some other famous coach was born there. Loeffler played at Michigan and coached at Michigan. His assistants, Steve Morrison, the linebackers coach, has just been elevated to co-defensive coordinator. Morrison played at Michigan. The passing game coordinator and wide receivers coach, Eric Soup Campbell, somebody that I played basketball a bunch with when he was back coaching at Michigan and their wide receivers. He's the passing game coordinator, so a real Michigan flavor when it comes down to Michigan and BG on the 16th. Let's see here. We've got some feedback. GFF, I think Harbaugh is going for blowouts this coming season, games in the 60s and 70s. I don't know about that. I don't think he'll run it up on Loeffler, but maybe the first two. I don't know. I look at Michigan's schedule all the way through, and this must be because of how they've performed the last 2 years. And, am I worried? Probably should be. It's a rivalry game at Michigan State. I'm not worried about Michigan State. Going to Nebraska and Minnesota, I think. I like PJ Fleck as a coach, but I think Michigan should be able to win in Minnesota. Do I think they can win at Nebraska? Matt Rule's first year. He's going to recruit well. It's going to be tougher as it goes along. But no, I like Michigan in that game too. At Penn State was already mentioned. Michigan won that game 2 years ago, and they needed to. Remember, they're coming off the Michigan State loss. They beat Indiana, but then it was on to Penn State. 7-6 at the half. Michigan needed that Eric All 47-yard touchdown to win it late. They needed the defense to step up too in the 21-17 victory. I don't know, is it going to be that's going to be a tough one, but I think Michigan can win that one. Just like I think they're going to beat Ohio State. And I wasn't saying that the last 2 years. Last year I picked Michigan to win their first 11 games. But that 12th one, considering it was on the road, even though Michigan had won the year before, I thought probably, it's tough to go undefeated. It hasn't happened very often. And yet, and then, Michigan's record against Ohio State spoke for itself, but they went down there. But the way that they played last year against OSU and the way they played the year before, and now considering that the game is in Ann Arbor, I predict that Michigan beats Ohio State for the third year in a row. Why would I predict anything else? Ohio State, I know he's highly rated, but let's see who their quarterback's going to be. Third base, talked a tough game in the offseason. We're tough. We're going to be tough. And they were soft. Are they still going to be soft defensively? Because they were soft to give up a lot of big plays. They had an excellent quarterback, but he's gone. So, the big bad Buckeyes aren't so bad anymore. I think Michigan's going to beat them. They'll beat them pretty good. That'd be my prediction right now. Ooh. I'm waiting for OSU to come home to the big house. GFF's going to that game. Sounds good. Andre says he's not in love with what I'm saying. I'm going to my first U of M game this year. It's going to have to be a conference game. Well, your first game ever? So what are we talking about? Rutgers, Indiana, Purdue? Yeah, it's a hell of a home slate. I'll tell you, you're buying your season tickets and you're looking through them and like, ooh, East Carolina, UNLV, BG. Okay, who else? Rutgers, IU, Purdue with a new coach. Ohio State. Yeah, you want to go to the Ohio State game after that. I'm not 100% sure who would be the attractive game after that. Indiana, probably Purdue. I don't know. Take your pick. Yeah, Andres is going to be like the whole year's non-conference at home until the last game. And hell, after Michigan won 45-23 this year and 42-27, Treat Ohio State like a non-conference cupcake this year. Maybe Michigan will hang 100 on Ohio State. Georgia's dominance of TCU, I believe, is in Harbaugh's. And then I can't read. Yeah, but the Harbaugh can't do anything about Georgia and TCU to the end. Does it matter if you're running up the score on Rutgers? If you're tagging them for 60 or 70? Michigan, I think, takes a business-like approach this year. Led by Blake Corum. Blake Corum and J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy's got some things to prove after the TCU game. Corum, I guess, it just has to show that he's 100% healthy. But the way that those guys talked after the games this year, they showed supreme confidence and also the kind of mentality that you want. They didn't get to, but they're, just beat Michigan State. They're off the field. And Corum, before he hit the tunnel, was like, we're on. We're on to the next game. We're on to Rutgers. Usually they say, hey, we'll enjoy this one this night. But, he was already on to Rutgers. McCarthy's been the same way. Hey, it's great. You guys just won 11-0. Beat Illinois. It's awesome. Yeah, we got work to do still. That was McCarthy. He was excited. Hey, it was great. But we've got another one next week. We want to win that one. We've got bigger fish to fry. All of that, all the way through. Like the mentality. I think that continues for Michigan business-like each and every game. Brandon says, I'd like to think we wouldn't have been embarrassed in the Georgia game. I think they would have played better than TCU. What the hell? I think they would have played, what was last year's score? 34-11? I think Michigan would have been better than last year. I don't, it would seem ridiculous to sit here and say that they could have won the game. But I was looking at heading into the TCU game that Michigan, if they played TCU 10 times, would probably win 6.5, 7 times. Of course, they ended up having those 3.5 played in. That's what happened. It was it was a crazy game. So TCU, that's how they pulled the upset. And I think if Michigan would have played Georgia, they probably would have lost 7, maybe 7.5 times. So, but saying that when you lose to the team that got absolutely smoked and then the team that, beat you the year before, it's hard to say, well, we'd had a chance. What can you say? I hope that Michigan gets to play Georgia this year in the championship game. Can we all agree on that? All right, let's get to some basketball. And I've got some odds for you. The Michigan basketball team to make the tournament, they have 8 games left in the regular season. Do they need to go 6-2? That would be nice. 5-3. You better think about going 5-3. 4-4 in the remaining games. That's going to be tough. Going to have to do really well once you get into the Big Ten tournament. But I would put the percentage right now at 35%. How about Hunter Dickinson? He's a junior. Some thought that he would go to the NBA after his freshman year. He was an All-American. He came back. Last year, I thought, he gone. He came back. Name, image, and likeness. Hooked him up. Would Hunter Dickinson stick around for one more year? There's the idea that he could go pro, but I think whenever he goes pro, he'll have a chance, for 2 or 3 years, to play in the NBA. Maybe he'll be like, remember Kofi Coburn at Illinois? He didn't get drafted. He's playing in Japan. I don't know how much he makes. I was looking at the NBA salary or professional basketball players' salaries in Japan. They range anywhere from 100,000 to $1 million. You want to go make $1 million in Japan? If you're Hunter Dickinson? Maybe, But can Hunter Dickinson make $1 million staying in Ann Arbor for a senior season with name, image, and likeness? Those that stay will be compensated. Yes. One thing that we know now that we have seen from Michigan is that no, they're not giving upfront money and promising signing bonuses. Pay to play is not as American as apple pie to Michigan. It's dirty. So Michigan's not going that route. But players that stick around like Zak Zinter, Blake Corum, others, they have been rewarded with name, image, and likeness. And the same thing with Hunter. So I think Hunter can make more money next year at Michigan than he can make anywhere else. Why not stay around for another year? Seems like he likes college basketball. Now, the idea is like Michigan might not make the tournament. He could be like, I'm going to go to Kentucky because I want to play in the NCAA tournament. Maybe another team would, drop $1 million on him. But I think that the Michigan collective will be I think they'll pay as much or more than any other team out there for Hunter. I think they should. I think they will. So that's why I put the chances at Hunter Dickinson coming back to Michigan at 60%. Make the tournament 35% right now. To return for his senior season, I put it at 60%. What about the true freshman, Juwan's son, Jet Howard? How about Jet coming back for his sophomore season? Jet now, if you look at mock drafts, if you look at NBA projections, he is a first-round pick. That's guaranteed. $6, $7, $12 million. Michigan's not paying. And remember, Caleb Houston, who are like, that guy's not a first-round pick. He went early in the second. He was guaranteed, $3 or $4 million, even where he was picked in the second round. That it's not like you used to say, oh, if you go and you're not a first-round pick, you made a big mistake. The way that the NBA works now, they get those second rounders and they give them guaranteed money. It's, cheap, air quotes, for NBA teams. I think Caleb Houston got, $3 or $4 million. Diabate, kind of the same thing. And in Jet right now has, he is actually being projected. There weren't many people. There were a few that were projected Houston and or Diabate to be late first round picks. But, Jet is, in the teens right now. And if he has a strong finish, you could see him getting closer to the lottery than to the 20s. So, that's an awful lot of money to have to turn down. But, his dad made $250 million in the pros. I don't know how much, and he can get something coming back if, he could get a pretty good NIL package. I don't know. Maybe his dad throws him $1 million. I don't know. Point is, you say you don't need the money, but are you turning down $12 million? I don't know. That's why I put the percentage very low. 30%. You might say, that's not really low. Maybe it's optimistic. However you feel. I wasn't trying to be optimistic or pessimistic. I was just trying to be realistic on all of these percentages. Jet Howard to come back for a sophomore season, I put it at 30%. He doesn't need the money. His dad's got a lot of money. The family doesn't need the money, but the money's there. But with name, image, and likeness, maybe $1 million or $2 million. And the way Michigan is with their name, image, and likeness collective, we know how it works. They should, be offering him up $7 million. Seven figures, $7 million. I don't know. It sounds crazy. The money sounds crazy right now. $7 million. I didn't mean that. But I did mean 7 figures. And same thing for Hunter. So that's where I'm at. Okay. I'll take some feedback here. Rob says he likes Hunter but won't get drafted. Yeah, I do too. I agree. Bo just rolled over in his grave. For what? For players getting money for coming back? One thing about Bo is that, people are like, Bo's 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Bo didn't like throw the football. Bo liked winning, is what Bo liked doing. And Bo changed things up. Well, when Bo got Anthony Carter, Bo knew to get the ball to AC. When Bo had Jim Harbaugh, Bo knew to let Harbaugh get after it. Yeah, in the 70s, he was, when he had Rick Leach and, the other, QBs, that most of those guys were running QBs. But he started going, I don't think, the thing about Bo and players getting compensated. Look, Bo was getting compensated. Here's the thing about people, and the money is like, oh, it's ruining things. I'm 52 years old. I can remember I got Sports Illustrated when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and one of the first ones was it had it was Major League Baseball, and they printed all of the millionaires on the front cover, and it was basically like, money is ruining the game, and this was professional sports, and inside it was like, this cannot continue. The players cannot get this kind of guaranteed money. It will ruin the game. This was like 1980. And then since then, everybody's been saying the same thing. Money ruins the game. It's ruining it for the players. Well, the owners, they're making a lot of money. And to the TV contracts that football and basketball, the college basketball and college football, the billions of dollars, the universities, are turning such a gigantic profit. I know that they have to pay for all the other sports and everything else. The players deserve the money. I saw all these people freaking out, like this Rashada, some Florida collective gave him $13 million. They reneged and he didn't get the money. He's suing them. He went to Arizona State and everybody like, this is terrible for college football. No, if he would have been able to get the money, that would have been good for Rashada. I saw other people like, oh, you give a young kid $1 million, that's gonna ruin him. No, it's not. I remember when the college basketball, where they said, they said you didn't have to go play college anymore. You could go right to the pros. There were a bunch of people that were like, oh, you give Kobe Bryant $1 million when he's 18, he'll blow it all. Kevin Garnett, well, these guys can't handle the money. Don't give LeBron James $1 million. Come on. It sounds ridiculous saying it now. There were a lot of guys that were young and didn't make it, but, we talk about the top guys. People were talking about all of them. And painting them with a broad brush. You can't give an 18-year-old $1 million and expect him. 18-year-olds getting a lot of money in a lot of other sports. They seem to do okay. Tennis, golf. I don't know about golf. Soccer, baseball. Right out of high school. Kid I went to high school, went pro after his sophomore year. He stayed at high school for 2 years, went pro. Was the first pick in the NHL draft. He did okay. Multi-millionaire. Scored the most goals in NHL history for an American-born player. Amazing. And he was kind of he wasn't like he was you would think, oh man, this guy's the smartest guy, or he's just a regular dude. He did all right. Okay. Optimism, pessimism, realism. Nice. Okay. I don't know why I was because of the Bo comment. That's what I was talking about. I think Bo would be all right. That's like when I see with, Jim might be getting all set, and I see his handlers are all over Twitter, like, oh my God, the money's ruining everything. He's like, and then people are like, Jim doesn't care about the money. Well, that's because he's getting offered the most in the Big Ten. Jim only interviewed for those NFL teams so he could leverage to get his assistants more money. So he can make his assistants millionaires. He could make, $10 million. The players are good. Give them $1 million. They deserve it. Now the Big Ten's given the each school $70 million before any of them hit the field. They're fine. Maybe all of the sports, don't have to fly charter. I don't know. Give the players the money. It's my stance. Well, we just talked basketball and some sad news to deliver. And it comes from the Michigan basketball family. Demetrius Calip, pictured standing next to Steve Fisher, passed away a couple days ago. Calip, 53 years old, played at Michigan from 87 to 91. From Flint Northern, wore the number 13, was a part of the 89 championship team. I put on the Michigan Xavier first round 89 tournament game today. In fact, I have it right here. And Calip in this game, there's a picture of Glenn Rice. There's Sean Higgins in there. But Calip in this game, and Michigan trailed from the majority of the game, but you see foul trouble. Ramil Robinson had 4 fouls. And so Calip had to come in this game, and he played a lot. He averaged 1.7 points on the season. He scored 9 in this game. And he hit some big free throws. I watched the game, like I said, earlier today. Hit some big free throws under a minute, canned them both on the stripe, ended up with 9 points. Michigan doesn't have the performance from Demetrius Calip in Steve Fisher's first ever game as the head coach for the Wolverines. There might not be that 89 championship banner up there. So Demetrius Calip, condolences to his family and the entire Michigan basketball family. Rest in peace, Demetrius. I'm sure Michigan's next game, what is it, against Nebraska tomorrow, Terry Mills, who I was watching a lot in this game. I'm sure T will have a lot to say about his teammate from the 89 team. All right, that's going to do it for us. I want to remind everybody that if they want to know what's going on with the Maize and Blue review all the time, or I'm sorry, if they want to know what's going on with the Maize and Blue, they should join up to the Maize and Blue review, aptly named. And you will know everything that's going on with the Wolverines. You'll be first in line to get all the information accurately from Josh Henschke and Trevor McHugh and company. Be in tune with Michigan in 23. Join the Maize and Blue review. Go to michigan.rivals.com. In addition to that, there is a posting board that I frequent every day. I post this particular show and put different notes and things on there and, get the conversation going. But then anything and all things Michigan day and night. It's a nice community and good discussions over there. Not wild, inflammatory, blank you. It's good stuff. I like it. I enjoyed it. After spending so many years in sports talk, being on there and going back and forth with Michigan fans, it's a lot of fun. So we'll see you there on the Den. Tell them I sent you. Till tomorrow, everybody have a great day. Goodbye.